It's now 1 year since the Welsh Government changed the default speed limit in urban areas from 30 miles an hour to 20. Well, I think it's fair to say that things have been a bit mixed in terms of whether this has been a success or not. There's been a lot of anger-mongering going on that the Welsh Government has completely changed its mind and is rolling back the 20 mile an hour limit. And indeed, over 500,000 people, quite a lot of them not actually in Wales, signed a petition urging the government to reconsider it. But when you take a look at the stats, it does seem to have been successful where it matters. We've had a 23% drop in the number of deaths and serious injuries in 20 and 30 mile an hour zones. 7% of roads were not changed and remained 30 mile an hour, now with repeaters. We've got some of those in Newquay, there's some in other towns as well. Cardiff, Swansea notably have some sections of 30 mile an hour still, and there's still 40s and 50s and 60s all over the place. So in terms of the raw figures, it does seem to have been successful. And Esure, the insurance company, reckons there's also been something like a 20% drop in insurance claims in those areas in Wales. So that means it's 100% successful, right? And the problem is that some changes just make no sense whatsoever. Here I am on the outer edges of Aberaeron. We've got a 20 mile an hour limit behind me here. It extends all the way to the 40 sign just back there, but there's no pedestrian crossings because there is nothing the other side. There's just countryside and no houses. So how does that make sense? And the simple answer is it doesn't. This road is very wide. Look, there's my 2CV parked in the distance. You can't even see it because it's so sunny. The road is very wide, very little in the way of pedestrian footfall here. This is not what the legislation was meant to target, but it somehow got wrapped up in it all. And this road is not unique. There are quite a lot of places where the limit just isn't appropriate. But the Welsh Government has done something about that. So what the government has done is rolled out another £5 million so local councils can all review some of the speed limits. There's been a further public consultation. The public have been invited to give their opinions. I can't tell you whether this one is going to be reviewed because unfortunately Ceredigion, the council we are in at the moment, is one of 3 councils that has not replied to requests asking whether anything is going to change. The council that has got the most requests to change, according to a BBC article, is Newport, which is sadly many miles from here. We won't be visiting today. But certainly there's about 1,500 limit changes that are going to be reviewed. And it might be that they just review a small section of that road. It might be to review the whole application of the 20 mile an hour limit there. But this is all a bit frustrating. Why couldn't this have been done in the first place? Now there's some areas like this tight winding road in Newquay where it absolutely makes sense to be 20 miles an hour. But here's the thing. It always was 20 miles an hour even before the rule change came into effect. And another downside is this used to be 20 miles an hour here, but when the default changed, they took away all the repeaters that reminded you that this was a 20 mile an hour limit because they were no longer a legal necessity. When we did our first video on the changes to 20 miles an hour, people were upset because I did a stopping test in my 2CV. They said it wasn't representative, but really that's regardless, because not every incident that involves pedestrian versus car involves braking at all. If a child runs between 2 parked cars out in front of you, you may hit them before you've even had time to hit the brake. I guess I was trying to demonstrate the difference in potential energy and how much more it's going to hurt. If a car hits you at 20, you are going to come off much better than if you'd been hit by that car at 30. That is just a fact of life. And I'd like to say that I'm not one of those who thinks 20s are fine around parks, hospitals and schools. Children exist in places other than those, and I think it is appropriate, especially in city centres and busy towns, to have a 20 mile an hour limit. I have no problem with that. I think the problem was the government just went down the route of going, oh well, we'll just change the default. That's the easiest way to do it. And really I'm not sure it was. because that's what ended up with a lot of roads where 20 isn't appropriate being wrapped up in all of this. And yeah, with over 500,000 people complaining, the Welsh Government had to take some action. So we're yet to see where limits are going to change. From today, that is permissible. But it has all been very, very clumsy. And I don't think that's a good way to go about things. It's one of the first countries in Europe to change the default to 20 miles an hour. Lots of European towns and cities, Oxfordshire is a widespread user of 20 mile an hour zones. A lot of countries are doing it, but not on this scale. And yeah, the implementation could definitely have been better. Oh, and another thing, my 2CV doesn't actually like doing 20. I find it a real struggle. She doesn't really want to be in third, but if I put her in second gear, then the revs are too high. But I still don't think that's a good reason not to have a 20. I guess one thing that does bother me is that 500,000 people signed this petition because car drivers don't want to drive slowly. But when it comes to real serious issues we've got going on in Wales, like A&E waiting times, we don't see that level of engagement, and that is frankly upsetting. The fact that people are waiting hours in ambulances at hospitals to be seen is an outrage. Why aren't people kicking off about that? So one question is, are you going to get done by the police if you break the 20 mile an hour speed limit? And the short answer is yes, but probably not unless you're exceeding 26. The average speed enforcement kicks in is 28 apparently. Yes, it's a lovely little Fiesta, isn't it? Joys of Aberaeron, you never know what's about. So you will get done for speeding, but you don't have to keep your eye on the speedo and make sure it never strays above 20. They're allowing some discretion there, but despite that, it's still bringing an average speed down. It has made quite a difference, and it has to be said, well, 500,000 drivers complained about this 20 mile an hour limit change. There's been no input from pedestrians or cyclists, and I have to say, walking around towns, especially where pavements, especially here in rural Wales, are sometimes a little lacking, it actually feels that much nicer when you're on foot because cars are coming past that little bit slower generally. There have been some absolute idiots tearing through 20 mile an hour limits almost as a form of protest. I almost got hit by one myself, and that has to be one of the stupidest forms of protest I've ever heard. And there have also been some very angry people who have said they're never going to visit Wales again because it has 20 mile an hour speed limits. Well, good, frankly. If you're that angry, then I'm glad you're not coming to Wales. Plenty of people still are. Lots of tourists having a lovely time. If you hate 20 mile an hour limits, then you better kiss most cities goodbye, and most of Oxfordshire as well. And I believe it was actually Yorkshire was the first to implement a 20 mile an hour speed limit. So good luck with that. Now, a legitimate source of complaint from Welsh motorists is that we already had these things. These are changing signs. They're placed near schools. There was legislation that said if there's a school, the speed limit must drop to 20 miles an hour when schools are going in and coming out again. Very sensible. And then it reverts to whatever the normal speed limit is. That already existed. It cost a fortune to implement. We've got loads of these electronic signs that have a horrible habit of going wrong. And now most of these have just been chucked in the bin because the default is now 20 anyway. So most of the changing signs have gone. This little stretch up the hill here in Aberaeron does go back to 30 when the schools aren't going in and out. So we already had that. Another annoyance is the sheer number of speed limit changes now. If you drive from here where we are in Aberaeron to, say, Carmarthen, you will face an almost endless stream of speed limit changes on your way. It'll go from 30 to 20 to 50 to 60 to 40, and that is annoying. Well, there we go. Hopefully we've managed to take some of the emotion out of this debate. I don't believe it's a war on motorists, and I certainly don't believe cars have the right to choose whatever speed they want to go. Limits exist with fair reason, and in a lot of cases 20 miles an hour is absolutely appropriate. I'm very glad work is being done to rectify those areas where it isn't the right speed limit, and the Welsh Government is accepting that. But to be honest, why did it have to be this way? Could we not have had a bit more force when this was implemented, and then we wouldn't have had quite so much anger, I don't think. But I hope you found that interesting. Don't forget you can support us via the Hubnut store if you'd like to buy some merchandise, or there's a buy me a coffee link in the description below. But thank you for watching, and we'll see you in a future video. Farewell.